and thanks for joining us. Sunday is Valentine's Day. We are celebrating it 2 days early with a wonderful group of singer, actors, poets presenting classical, modern, personal, collaborative works. The distinguished participants are, in order of appearance, Jennifer Clymer, Helen Richmond, Phoebe McAdams, Corinne Conley, Kay Wiseman, James Cushing, Celeste Goyer, Jamie O'Halloran, and myself, Harry E. Northup. Here's a wonderful singer, Jennifer Clymer.
If I needed you, would you come to me? Would you come to me to ease my pain? And if you needed me, I would come to you. I would swim the seas to ease your pain. Well, the night's forlorn and the morning's born. The morning's born with the lights of love. And if you'll miss sunrise, you'll close your eyes. That would break my heart in two. If I needed you, would you come to me? Would you come to me to ease my pain? If you needed me, I would come to you. I would swim the seas to ease your pain. Baby's with me now, since I showed her how to lay her lily hand in mine. Who could agree she's a sight to see, a treasure for the poor to find? If I needed you, would you come to me? Would you come to me to ease my pain? If you needed me, I would come to you. I would come to you to ease your pain.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jennifer. That was If I Needed You by Townes Van Zandt from the mid-70s from Texas. Our next poet, our next reader is Helen Richmond. Helen.
The Passionate Shepherd to His Love by Christopher Marlowe. Come, live with me and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove that valleys, groves, hills, and fields, woods, or steepy mountain yields. And we will sit upon the rocks, seeing the shepherds feed their flocks by shallow rivers, to whose falls melodious birds sing madrigals. And I will make thee beds of roses and 1,000 fragrant posies, a cap of flowers, and a kirtle embroidered all with leaves of myrtle, a gown made of the finest wool, which from our pretty lambs we pull, fair-lined slippers for the cold, with buckles of the purest gold, a belt of straw and ivy buds, with coral clasps and amber studs. And if these pleasures may thee move, come, live with me, and be my love. The shepherd swains shall dance and sing for thy delight each May morning. If these delights thy mind may move, then live with me and be my love. To my dear and loving husband, by Anne Bradstreet. If ever two were one, then surely we. If ever man were loved by wife, then thee. If ever wife was happy in a man, compare with me, ye women, if you can. I prize thy love more than whole mines of gold, or all the riches that the East doth hold. My love is such that rivers cannot quench, nor aught but love from thee give recompense. Thy love is such I can no way repay. The heavens reward thee manifold, I pray. Then, while we live in love, let's so persever, that when we live no more, we may live ever. I Will Find You by Harry E. Northup. I will find you behind a tree. I will find you in a bouquet of flowers. I will find you in a cup of coffee, in a book of pastoral poetry, in an absent love, in a sorrowful friend, in a narcissistic friend. I will find you in an evening sunset, in a shady nook where I practice cornet, in a friend with a terminal illness, in a home without a wife, in a wife who's coming home. I will find you in a leafless sycamore, in a rabbit, squirrel, hawk, egret. I will find you in a journey home, in a friend's compassion, at a table with a poetry book. I will find you in a photo, an email reply, in a forgiving heart, in a gracious, generous act. I will find you within.
That was great. Thank you, Helen. As we all know, Anne Bradstreet was America's first poet, generally accepted that. The next poet is Phoebe McAdams.
I'm going to read from William Carlos Williams's poem, Asphodel, That Greeny Flower, which is a love poem that he wrote to his wife, Flossie. I'm going to read sections of it because it's quite long. Of asphodel, that greeny flower, I come, my sweet, to sing to you. My heart rouses, thinking to bring you news of something that concerns you and concerns many men. Look at what passes for the new. You shall not find it there, but in despised poems. It is difficult to get the news of poems from poems, yet men die miserably every day for lack of what is found there. Hear me out, for I too am concerned, and every man who wants to die at peace in his bed besides. I bring you a last flower. Don't think that because I say this in a poem it can be treated lightly, or that the facts will not uphold it. Are facts not flowers, and flowers facts, or poems flowers, or are all the works of the imagination interchangeable? What proves that love rules them all? For then you will be my queen of love forevermore. Inseparable from the fire, its light takes precedence over it. Then follows what we have dreaded, but it can never overcome what was gone before. In the huge gap between the flash and the thunderstroke, spring has come in, or a deep snow fallen. Call it old age, that stretch we have lived to see. A colt licked up his heels. Do not hasten, laugh and play in an eternity. The heat will not overtake the light, that's sure. That gilds the bomb, permitting that the mind contain it. This is that interval, that sweetest interval, when love will blossom. Come early, come late, and give itself to the lawyer, to the lover. Only the imagination is real. I have declared it, time without end. If a man die, it is because death has first possessed his imagination. But if he refuse death, no greater evil can befall him, unless it be the death of love meet him in full career. Then indeed for him the light has gone out. But love and the imagination are of a piece, swift as the light to avoid destruction. And so we come to watch time's flight as we might watch summer lightning or fireflies, secure by the grace of the imagination, safe in its care. For if the light itself has escaped, the whole edifice opposed to it goes down. Light, the imagination, and love in our age by natural law, which we worship, maintain all of the peace, their dominance. So let us love, confident as is the light in its struggle with darkness. The palm goes always to the light. Who most shall advance the light, call it what you may, the light for all time shall outspeed the thunder crack. Medieval pageantry is human, and we enjoy the rumor of it, as in our world we enjoy the reading of Chaucer. Likewise, the priest's raiment, or that of a savage chieftain. It is all a celebration of the light, all the pomp and ceremony of weddings. Sweet Thames, run softly till I end my song, are of an equal sort. For our wedding too, the light was wakened and shone. The light stood before us, waiting. I thought the world stood still. At the altar, so intent was I before my vows, so moved by your presence, a girl so pale and ready to faint, that I pitied and wanted to protect you. As I think of it now, after a lifetime, it is as if a sweet-scented flower were poised and for me did open. Asphodel has no odor save to the imagination, but it too celebrates the light. It is late, but an odor, as from our wedding, has revived for me and begun again to penetrate into all the crevices of my world.
That was beautiful, Phoebe. I love that poem. WCW was one of the most important poets of the 20th century. You read it fabulously. Our next reader is Corinne Connolly.
I'm going to read Sonnet 147, William Shakespeare. My love is as a fever, longing still. My love is as a fever, longing still for that which nurses the disease, feeding on that which doth preserve the ill, the uncertain, sickly appetite to please. My reason, the physician to my love, angry that his prescriptions are not kept, hath left me, and I, desperate now, approve desire is death, which physic did accept. Past cure I am, now reason is past care, and frantic mad with evermore unrest. My thoughts and my discourse as madmen's are, at random from the truth, and vainly expressed. For I have sworn thee fair, and thought thee bright, who are as black as hell, and dark as night. The Romance by Shel Silverstein. Said the pelican to the elephant, I think we should marry, I do, 'cause there's no name that rhymes with me, and no one else rhymes with you. Said the elephant to the pelican, there's sense to what you've said, for rhyming's as good a reason as any for any two to wed. And so the elephant wed the pelican, and they dined upon lemons and limes. And now they have a baby pelican, and everybody rhymes. Back a few centuries, to Ben Jonson, to Celia. I sent thee late a rosy wreath, not so much honoring thee as giving it a hope that there it could not withered be. But thou thereon didst only breathe and sent'st it back to me. Since then it grows, it smells, I swear, not of itself, but thee. Drink to me only with thine eyes, and I will pledge with mine. Or leave a kiss within the cup, and I'll not ask for wine. The thirst that from the soul doth rise, and ask a drink divine. But might I of Jove's nectar sup, I would not change for thine.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Corinne. Our next reader is Kay Wiseman.
This is William Shakespeare, and it's Sonnet 18. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometime declines by chance of nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe, or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. This is Elizabeth Barrett Browning, Sonnets from the Portuguese. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach when feeling out of sight for the ends of being an ideal grace. I love thee to the level of every day's most quiet need by sun and candlelight. I love thee freely, as men strive for right. I love thee purely, as they turn from praise. I love thee with the passion put to use in my old griefs and with my childhood's faith. I love thee with a love I seem to lose with my lost saints. I love thee with the breath, smiles, tears of all my life. And if God choose, I shall but love thee better after death. And this is from Spoon River Anthology, Edgar Lee Masters, and it's called Epitaphs. At first, you will know not what they mean, and you may never know, and we may never tell you. These sudden flashes in your soul, like lambent lightning on snowy clouds at midnight when the moon is full. They come in solitude. Or perhaps you sit with your friend, and all at once a silence falls on speech, and his eyes, without a flicker, glow at you. You too have seen the secret together. He sees it in you, and you see it in him. And there you sit, thrilling, lest the mystery stand before you and strike you dead with a splendor like the sun's. Be brave, all souls who have had such visions, as your body's alive, as mine is dead. You're catching a little whiff of the ether, reserved for God himself.
That was terrific. Thank you, Kay. Our next readers are James Cushing and Celeste Goyer from Hollywood.
Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, MPTF. We're going to read collaboratively some poems that were written collaboratively. And we'd like to dedicate our portion of today's reading to the memory of the jazz genius Chick Corea, who passed earlier this week. This poem is called Book of Instruction. Girl child, the walls below you shrink every 7 years, like a series of familiar faces. The sun remains dry all day until I add water. I keep hearing invisible animals inside the quote next to my name. They start small, leave us, and join history. Nevertheless, I see a man tomorrow morning at 11 made of paper and cardboard. And in the evening, I'll look for the longest pieces of music from the index under strange and difficult. I'm all out of apologies, but I saw you in a dream wearing white, standing on the roof of a house I used to live in. And I remembered how impossible knowledge has always been, how heavy and bulky the last chapter of its book, how slippery to the touch, and how hard you tried to keep it from slipping out of your hands. Be gentle enough to give it another try. We'll have a picnic on your outstretched hand.
This was written on a friend's farm in the Catskills 2 summers ago. This week, I go further toward the goal of my life. Above me hovers Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, dressed in a white collar, blue feathers, and green glasses like the ones I'm wearing right now. What has he done with the eagles and the trumpets? Where have we wound up heading?
I know what I know and what I'm sticking to. Below me, a map that looks like a drawing of a woman wearing a sun hat, walking with a stick. She's seen lions made of ash walk all over people's emotions. They look good from above, but they have a lot of twists inside, and lower teeth, tall as my shoulders, made of ice.
We must move carefully on our map. To my left, the road is slippery and uneven. On my right, weeds that I use for divination. Will I go back to my partner or leave? I'm looking for a sea of blue, but it's getting tiny, quick to squint back at me. I'm seeing a cool column of smoke I remember from college behind me. Scenes with my parents play over and over. In front of me, the backs of things, white on white, yielding looks, furtive hisses, clumsy hands. On a down staircase, you have to be careful.
This world will soon be lost without a riding mower. Sometime this month, the grass will grow over the last raspberries. By August, the grass will break my will and push me straight into a barn full of birds shouting, "Daddy, hurry!" My living room and workspace are secretly hidden under a golden moon with a pitying look on its face, its vein system pushing blood in surges through our human bodies, corpuscles like train cars bumping slowly around long curves toward the meadow that fills their windows.
And the last poem, A Shoe in Front of You. In this narrow, powder-soft library, we spent our nervous lunch money on white cloth napkins and pairs of scissors. We were beginners learning to sing, act out our boyfriend's disclosures, hoping no one noticed when lozenges fell onto the path. From the stove to the table was no novelette, but who can say? From a springtime roof, someone called, "Thank you, Mr. Mop." Our teacher lifted his greatcoat, releasing the gorgeous owls. They fed on our insecurity. You didn't. Your name was sung in an orderly, kind way, like instruments you never coveted or measured. The body, all we really have in our cross-legged, odd or even future, shook like a lilac, begging for breath, her wet cheeks, her sober head. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Jim and Celeste. Our next reader is from Ireland, Jamie O'Halloran.
Good to be here. Thank you, everyone. I'm reading sonnets. It's a crown of sonnets. So sonnets have 14 lines, and a crown of sonnets has 14 plus 1 with all the lines. So it's when you hear the repetition, you'll hear that the last line of one poem becomes the first line of the next, and then the final poem includes all of those lines that have been repeated. And again, I live in Ireland. This is rural Ireland, and these are very much of January 2021, winter rural Ireland. Okay. 1. If it weren't for the cold, the short days, one might not guess it is winter. All is green, hedges and fields. Even the leafless limbs of beech wear woolly green lichen gloves. Spears of crocus and daffodil break through unfrozen soil. Each morning, earlier as the sunrise creeps back, I check for the newly appeared congregations of stiff foliage where blossoms will open like choristers. Closing in on my first full round of seasons in this new place, I still learn what grows, when and where. Blanket of alder leaves feeds the meadow. Wild carrot will follow hyacinth and bluebells. This year of grief isn't ending, but brightening. 2. This year of grief isn't ending, but brightening, with its earlier sun and later moon. Yesterday evening we drove to the bends. The sight of them sifted with the morning snow would be the last we could catch until this next lockdown is lifted. For now, we dwell within our 5K radius that hasn't mountain or sea. We caught the best a day could bring, with a shower ending as the sun was settling deep into Connemara, a rainbow arched across the all of Mom Valley bog. Holiday closures will stay this month, tight as a bud, while the snowdrops ring their shy white bells. By February, March, we may have the jab. If nothing else, the little sons of Narcissus will nod, cradling the lights we lost. Sons of Narcissus will nod, cradling the lights we lost. A calendar's been flipped through, and the flowers' yellow cups are mementos of the season when this plague was truly novel. Would I remember an assortment of weeks, months, days that opened and closed like the push-pull scales of a concertina, like the locking of lungs swamped with fluid. Cough, not deep enough for worry. Flush from heat, not fever. Salt, sweet, sour, bitter, articulated still. It is not my beloved's lonely suffocation. It is the moment when the corps of nurses and doctors abandon one bed for the next, and again, and again. Those wards, more than adequate in winter, all but morgues in March, as we careen into spring, locking down yet again. 4. In March, as we careen into spring, locking down yet again. Hope it will be another Groundhog Day rerun where the clock radio launches us back to a surge we've already crested. Pray that next month there will be no need to fold reeds into St. Bridget's crosses for guarding our health. 7 mystic weeks between March's roar and today, the same number to circumambulate the Kaaba at Mecca, Catholic sacraments. This old man, he played 7, he played knick-knack up in heaven. Some numbers are lucky, though nothing fortunate in the headline toll with more digits than ever taking up the rear. The health service posts the count every evening at 6 as the Angelus tolls, reminding us of the incarnation and how it came just like that, like the COVID catching us unawares. It makes us pause, glance to see what is. 5. This has an epigraph from Marilyn Robinson's novel, Lila. What use was there in calling a day by a certain name, or thinking of it as anything other than weather? It makes us pause, glance to see what is behind the whoosh in the road that could be wind or another engine. The pause brings quick steps to clear the road, or marveling at a branch's nod. It is the same as the last walk or tomorrow's. Night, evening, morning are measures of light marking weather and seasons. Yesterday was wet day, today soft day, a gray one when the lake is the unwooded patch along the horizon seeping into the sky. The earth shows its unharried turn in the ivy, winter heavy with clusters of berries. Wild marjoram has died back. Heuchera is a constellation of rest. Narcissus pokes up, finding nowhere to reflect underground. Come March, see it bloom by the river, head pendant, yellow crown. 6. See it bloom by the river, head pendant, yellow crown. The daffodil, oddly solitaire, bends its glory, an act of humility at crosshairs with that color, chrome, favored by many bees. Is the turning away a ploy? The downcast eyes, meaning the fallen focus of the eye, not mood, once de rigueur for young ladies, now not so much shyness, but disinterest, boredom, depression. And why alone? This flower that loves to naturalize, clumping in cotillion clutches, petals like petticoats. Solo it is on the bank of the River Faw, where salmon leap October and May. No figuring out a flower. Some breeze will shake loose its pollen, and more of its kind may bloom next spring if the groundskeeper will mind the foliage to let it die completely. 7. Mind the foliage to let it die completely. Only then will its purpose, the feeding of future flowers, be fulfilled. Sure, yes, it is unsightly. Limp slag of ribbon, yellowing from green, taking its time to brown and crisp. Lazy rashers in summer's skillet, not sun enough to make them sizzle. Here it is, January, and my mind is occupied by the remains of spring bulbs yet to bloom. Future is all one has when present is masked into 5 kilometers and a fragile bubble. Future is the remnant of this present, in bits, absolute bits. Fractured year of shrunken funerals, virtual, you name it, school terms on again, off again, Zoom weary. These seasons wear us into the next, threadbare. We'll arrive at the threshold, stomping our stocking feet. 8. We'll arrive at the threshold, stomping our stocking feet, refusing to cross. Why not stay here where we're all we are? Last evening's lamplight splintered on the laurel into fireflies, wee gems of gold under the new moon. The sky was a cavern where the stars and planets played, gods and animals, heroes and fish, so crowded up there. Rain crazed the window pane. The tapers lighting our table teared in another window into a votive candle stand. Our intention for today was to light one for our late friend. We planned to find the right spot to plant the carpet roses. I was going to dig a hole by the fence for the honeysuckle. And so we paved our road, our failings the hell we make. Prudence wrestles impatience behind this scrim. Living shadows cast the story, lengthening as the days play out. 9. Shadows cast the story, lengthening as the days play out. Even though the sun shifts higher above the horizon, dark silhouettes stretch ever longer across the state. 9,000 names stretch into a ribbon of mourning, Sisters of Mercy. Blinds raise and shutters open in different order of respect, Daughters of Charity. The best disinfectant, they say, is sunshine. They dug out the septic tank of St. Mary's mother and baby home, hoarded rubble of fetuses and babies' bones, laid to disordered rest they were. Others were haggled overseas to more hallowed mothers in unblessed bliss. Bon secours. This happened in the New Republic, independent from one rule, lashed to another. The famine burial ground was unblessed. Furs colonizes that field with its wildly blooming yellow sparks. 10. Furs colonizes that field with its wildly blooming yellow sparks, where Sonia, a Connemara pony, some days is let to graze. A hand-drawn sign warns against feeding her rotten veg. This was a burial ground, not a cemetery, for the soil was unconsecrated for holding the poor that died of the fever. Returned to this earth, here they were, though not of their own volition. The consecration is that part of the Mass with the host, transubstantiation. The wretches laid in this field, their bodies unhosted. They may have welcomed spoiled spuds. The ground took most of them in the decades after the hunger. Blight damages more than potatoes. It was said to stink to high heaven. Source of the word is unknown, but said to mean wither hope or check prosperity. So the COVID stunts promises of another spring, a summer without bounds. 11. Promises of another spring, a summer without bounds, persist. That early daffodil missed its December launch. This morning, though, its sheath of green suggested yellow, so it should bloom by St. Bridget's Day. The black currant cuttings show signs of survival. The hedge that holds dormant dog rose, fuchsia, and blackberry will again be pink and white against a buttery backdrop of firs. Seeking calamity continues to be rewarded with desecrations of the human heart, but sweet box blossoms. There is the patch where hyacinth will stand up and where the creamy parasols of wild carrot will pop open. Shutters will be fastened against midsummer twilight, not the cold. Already birdsong rings Angelus loud, and lusty wood pigeons clap their wings. We'll surrender that shed to the ivy, where robins tend to nest. 12. We'll surrender that shed to the ivy, where robins tend to nest. Last spring, while reclaiming it from a stranglehold of green, we found deep in a Celtic knot of vine a twig-woven well, sheltering a clutch of 5 blue eggs. This was before we learned to leave the growing to be in the spring until fledging is over. We'll let the shed alone. The ivy can't tendril through concrete the way it can weave drying stone walls into buckling. Funny that ivy, with its wandering way, is an emblem of fidelity in a bride's bouquet. Ivy-leaved toadflax, though, is no relation and finds easy birth in a wall, as do hard fern and tart's tongue, that thrive gently in crevices, spilling their bright fronds plume against the gray. Robins feed madly in winter. They need fuel for warmth and to keep the embers glowing in their breasts. 13. For warmth and to keep the embers glowing in their breasts, the robins get their pick of suet and peanuts caged in the front garden, and a column of seed swinging in back. They ate the holly bare of berries weeks before Christmas. Winter was late to arrive, but is taking its time closing down. Morning frost showed us glass sheen sheets on nursery pots that held Tuesday's rain. The birds know this land better than me. Why should I worry about their feed? They have time before nests must be built. Blue tit, blackbird, song thrush make this tight perimeter bearable. I watch for them and chase away the neighbor's cat. Mornings, I make the rounds of beds where bulbs press upward through horse chestnut leaves and wood chip mulch. Have I ever craved their blooming so much? 14. Have I ever craved their blooming so much, as if the daffodils and crocus were savories or sweets to chew and suck, or my lover? The crisis is distant, but close enough to keep us homebound, except for walks within 5K. We double up on masks to buy farm eggs and milk, message the grocer to collect greens, pears, cheese. We eat porridge by a window, grateful for a view of the cinematic weather. It's where I study birds of Europe and number the weeks until we get the jab. I continue counting snowdrops and wager with myself about which daffodil will open first. I'd live in the garden if it weren't for the cold, the short days. And this is 15, this is the binding, the final. If it weren't for the cold, the short days, this year of grief isn't ending, but brightening. Sons of Narcissus will nod, cradling the lives we lost in March as we careen into spring, locking down yet again. It makes us pause, glance to see what is. See it bloom by the river, head, pendant, yellow crown. Mind the foliage to let it die completely. We'll arrive at the threshold, stomping our stocking feet. Shadows cast the story, lengthening as the days play out. Furs colonizes that field with its wildly blooming yellow suns, promises of another spring, a summer without bounds. We'll surrender that shed to the ivy, where robins tend to nest for warmth and to keep the embers glowing in their breasts. Have I ever craved their blooming so much? Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie, for those poignant poems. Before I read my poems, I'm going to just say that thank you all for your support and love of MPTF. MPTF, this is its 100th anniversary, and it's helped thousands upon thousands of people who worked in front of or behind the camera. And your love and the light you have given uplifts us all. There's a lot of beauty on the screen today, in the words and in the readings. So I'm very touched by all of your readings, and thank you all very much. This poem is Love Poem to MPTF. Sitting in the Roddy McDowell Rose Garden, I see a bubbling pool, sunlight on benches, tree with red leaves, circles, statues, plaques, roses of many colors surround me. If there is a place more peaceful on earth, I don't know it. More cooperative, helpful, harmonious, I am unaware. Greenery, lit paths, hands like waterfalls reach out to help. Hands like pillows protect the fall. Within white roses, a found home. This is a little bit opposite from Jamie's sonnets. My wife's socks. 2 pairs are laid on 2 upraised pillows with white pillowcases. 1 pair is light pink with white toes, heels, and tops. The other, medium pink. They are somehow a prayer and a symbol of warmth throughout the night, which makes them not symbolic, but a vessel of carrying, keeping out the cold, which in a way is a prayer. My wife loves socks. where I sleep naked, she sleeps bundled up. We live in the Villa Inn, the motion picture and television fund. Before she goes to bed, she takes off the socks she's wearing, puts on the 2 pairs of socks from the pillow. When she's done that, she gets into bed, and I lift the sheets and blankets, pull them up to her chin. We kiss. I love you, I say. I love you with all my heart, she replies. She goes to sleep.
So beautiful.
This poem, The Bedroom, I wrote when I first met Holly, 1977. The bedroom. I love your bedroom. The sheets are always clean and cold. The windows are on the east side and the south side. There's always a nice, cool breeze. There's a quilt on the bed at the foot of the bed, next to the bed, even with the pillows, bowl, water, roses, the tops of. What was fresh finding the water in the bowl by the bed? Her father took her mother a fresh flower every day of her life. She is 2 years older, and she is beautiful and strong and delicate, sensual as the sun keeping the night from being black in its pillow, the moon water. Thank you all. We have about 8 or 9 minutes left, and you have all really enhanced this day for me and for all of us. It's our Valentine to all of those people who are watching, and we're just tremendously grateful to Jennifer Clymer for asking me to start this poetry hour almost a year ago. This is our 45th show. And when she asked me, I said, well, I don't have a lot of my books. They were destroyed, but I'll do what I can. And she and the CEO here, Bob Beecher, have one thing in common, among other things, but I've mentioned this before. And what that is a loving support of the creative. They're here to help us all. And you all from outside have helped us all, lift up our hearts on this day. And, as I said, we have 8 more minutes. So let's go around the horn, starting with Jennifer, and we'll go in the order that we each read. And if you want to say something about love, about when you met your spouse or your girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever it is, what Valentine's Day means to you, please do. Here's Jennifer Clymer.
Love stinks. No, I'm just kidding. This pandemic has brought into super, super sharp focus to me the importance of valuing the moments that we have together and remembering those tender moments, regardless of whether your spouse is beside you now or not. That the soul of that, the love that you shared, continues to live on when you remember, when you step back in time and embrace that loving moment. I had a very personal and frank and honest conversation with somebody here who lost their love and had made the decision to live in the grief of it instead of celebrate the joy that the love existed. And on Valentine's Day, I think celebrating the love that exists and honoring that is really important, because it is a choice to decide. Obviously, there will always be grief, there will always be sadness tied to a love that is lost. But to make the decision to celebrate the love that was had, I think is vital.
Thank you, Jennifer. Helen Richmond.
Yes, well, I recently lost my very dear husband, but I'm so happy that before he died, he wrote his autobiography, which of course I had already read, but I'm rereading, and it was in from a whole different space now. And I'm reading it slower, and I'm digesting it, and I'm loving every page, and it's a blessing that it brings me close to him. And it's called I Saw a Molten White Light, the spiritual and creative journey of Peter Mark Richmond. That's the name of the book, and it's a beautifully written book. And his or our life is kind of pretty interesting. I just wanted to share that with you. And the other thing about Valentine's Day is that my son 1 year ago got married on Valentine's Day. So I'm very happy they're going to celebrate their first anniversary.
Thank you, Helen. And next up is Phoebe McAdams. Phoebe.
Hello. Well, I am in hopefully the middle of my second marriage. And I remember when I lived alone for years, and I decided that I was going to make peace with living by myself. I had 2 children, and a career, and I had my poetry. I was a teacher. And so I just decided I was going to make peace with it. And so I did. I made peace with it. I was very happy living by myself. And that was the moment that all of the people in my department at Roosevelt High School decided to set me up with Ron Ozuna. And that's a whole story unto itself, which was hilarious how they did that. So Ron and I fell in love very quickly. He proposed to me 2 weeks after we met. And we are now we're about to celebrate. We got married in 1995. So we're been married many years. And I think there's something about a second marriage, particularly when you never thought you were going to have a second marriage, that makes you incredibly appreciative and fortunate. I feel very fortunate to have this. And this love instructs my every day. So it is a joy. My mother refused to celebrate Valentine's Day. She thought it was a total hype. And I know it's a total hype, but nevertheless, I like Valentine's Day.
Thank you, Phoebe. And Corinne Conley.
This was a lovely Valentine's Day. It was nice, Harry, to hear your poems, which I've read, but to hear them spoken was really beautiful. I'll get that book out again, yes, because they were really lovely. And our friend from Ireland, how nice. Thank you for coming. I noticed that she mentioned COVID, so they too are, I guess, living under the same strain that we are here. But it was so interesting, that form of sonnets. Truly, I didn't quite get what it was called, but it was very interesting. You just love it when the line is picked up for the next sonnet, that you're going to continue with that. And I do hope that, I'm sure that spring will break through beautifully in Ireland, just like it always does, very soon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Corinne. And next up is Kay Wiseman.
I got married when I was 58 years old, and my husband was 70. But we were lucky enough to have 20 years together. And because I was so much older, and because this was a second marriage for him, his wife had died, every day was kind of like Valentine's Day, because we knew the time was short. So he passed away 5 years ago, and he's with me every day. So that's what love is. And this was lovely to share all of this with you.
Thank you, Kay. And next is James Cushing and Celeste Goyer.
On our very first date, we made arrangements to have a second date the day after. And on our second date, which was at a concert by a musical group that we found moderately interesting, Celeste Well, what did you do, darling?
They'd given us a little piece of paper involved in some voting exercise, and so I just wrote the first line of a poem, something about an apple. It's just an instinct because he was obviously getting bored, and I handed him the pencil. Our first collaborative poem was on our second date. We've written over 70 now.
So, in terms of discovering love, I think that was Kiss Me Baby. Yeah.
That's the whole thing about the movies. Show, don't tell. Well, thank you, Jim and Celeste. And our last person to speak is Jamie O'Halloran.
Yeah. Oh God, it's wonderful hearing everybody. You know, we this isn't my first marriage, and I got married. It wasn't brand new for us. We weren't really young, so I think that had something to do with it. But my husband, we've been married together about 13 years, and you know what I say to him almost every day. You know, I wouldn't want to be in lockdown with anybody else. You know, it's just, I mean, we moved countries. We left Los Angeles just as the lockdown happened. So it's a real interesting way of getting into a new culture and everything. But it's, you know, love is how you treat everybody every day, and when there's some candles and other things going along with it, it's good too. It's great. So, thanks, Harry.
Thank you, Jamie. And do we have 1 minute left, Jennifer, or are you going to your next show?
We have a minute left. Our next show is a lovely game that we play on Thursdays normally. The people from Trailer Park are volunteering to play Mafia with us today. It's a killer game that we are changing to be Valentine's Day themed. So instead of Mafia, you're going to be Cupid. As everyone starts to gather, let's wrap up the poetry hour. And so, yeah, we've got another couple of minutes, Harry, please.
Okay, for me, Lee Hickman, who was one of the better poets that come out of LA, he kept telling me about this book, Feast, and it was written by Holly Prado. And I knew who she was, but I didn't know her. And I thought, oh, it sounds too feminine for me, too intricate, too circular. And then I read it, and I fell in love with her writing. So my son and I took a dozen red roses to her house. She was living on Russell, and she lived upstairs. Well, I put it at the wrong door downstairs. The woman downstairs took it up to her, and then we talked on the phone, and we went out on a date. And right before we met, we were at a poetry at a bookstore in West LA, Papa Bach, and we had both had poetry published in its magazine, Baki. And she told me later, she said, I noticed Harry Northup just kept looking at me and circling me. So that was the beginning. And I always tell her, or I did tell her, I used to tell her, I'm glad you chose me. So thank you all once again for such a lovely reading. There was so much beauty in every aspect of this reading. And thanks once again to Jennifer Clymer, who makes this happen every day for 4 days a week, show after show for almost a year. Thank you all.
I invite you all to come back in a month's time, because March 12th will be the 50th show of Harry's Poetry Hour. So mark your calendars. March 12th will be a celebration for sure.